In this video, I'm going to provide a brief demonstration on how to build a learning environment model using the learning environment modeling language in a flowcharting software. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I'm using a flowcharting software here, but the symbols and all the techniques can be equally used just the same if you're using analog methods such as post-it note cards or drawing, paper and pencil, whiteboards, things of that nature. So everything that I'm doing here can be very easily applied into those environments, into that medium. So what I have here is actually an example of something similar that we're going to create in this video. This is a learning environment model that is for how to set up an email client software on a computer. Now, so what we've done is we've plotted the evidence of learning building block, and we've sort of worked backwards. So we've added practice, we've added information, we've added a lesson overview, and we've also added all these various elements to the model. So I'm going to walk through very briefly how I created this, and then we'll sort of look and see how it can be adapted and used in different ways. So I'm going to switch over here to the demonstration tab, and notice I have a blank canvas here. Over here I have my LEML framework, and so the first thing that I'm going to do is actually bring over the evidence of learning building block. Now, for time's sake, I'm going to provide just a brief description here. So this is set up email client. And the way that this is going to be done is I know that the learners are going to demonstrate this in a live setting. So we can put just demonstrate would be fine. Then if we start working backwards, we know that we want to add maybe a practice element to this. Maybe we could add some information such as a demonstration on how to walk that through, and maybe an overview to the lesson. So I'll begin working backwards again, plotting that that information. So practice exercise for client email client setup. And let's say, for example, we'll do this in a group. So group practice exercise. Okay, so then if I work backwards again, I have here a information building block. And so let's say I'm going to do a demonstration of how to set it up. And then let's say that we're going to make that available as a video. Change my spelling there. And then at the very start, to begin the lesson, we're going to have a lesson overview. So this will be an opportunity to communicate the objectives and things of that nature. And we'll have that as an HTML page. So here I have the very basic outline of the lesson that I'm going to be modeling. I may also decide that I want to add some feedback. And let's say that this is, let's see, instructor feedback, and that's provided in a live feedback session in the context of them doing the practice. And then let's say, for example, that we may want to have some sort of a dialogue, a lessons learned, for example, around the practice exercise. So lessons learned discussion. And we can do this during, in the process of them actually practicing. So this would be a small group discussion. So again, with these building blocks, I'm notating at the beginning of a description of what it is, and then the bottom is how it's represented in the environment. So at this point, I have my building blocks, or at least the basic beginnings of them. So now I'm ready to add actions to the model. So to do this, I began simply drawing the arrows between the models and how they're going to flow. And so I'm connecting those building blocks. In this case, it's going to be more of a back and forth type model. So if I wanted to add another arrow on that, I certainly could there. And the feedback is going to go here. I know that's going to be instructor feedback, so I need to actually change the arrow type that I'm using there. And so notice, so currently I have the learner that is going back and forth on these, and then working forward with that. So so I have all these built out here. Kind of align that there. All right, and then so I have now I'm ready to add the contexts to the model. So by doing this, I have 4 different contexts that I could pull from, and let's say, for example, that I want to be able to have the beginning part of this lesson delivered in an online asynchronous format. So I drag the online asynchronous over, and then I have that adjusted there. And then let's say the second part is actually conducted in the classroom. So I bring the classroom element over, and I bring that to the back, and position that as well. If you were doing this in let's say on a whiteboard or drawing or something, you could use different color markers to highlight and outline those contexts as well. So now I'm ready to add the notations and annotations to the model. So if I provide, let's start by the start and end points. So I have those there, and I can begin connecting that. So I have my end point now, and I connect that as well. So I have my start and end points, and I know I have my objective that in some way is going to connect here with the evidence of learning, and I can kind of place it up here. You can use an objective ID, or you could also reference that objective out specifically if you wanted to. Notice that that is just a system dialog, so or a system action, so I'm going to change the type of connection there as well. So now I have the annotations and the notations added. If I wanted to, I could also add a note here, so I could just bring over some note features. Add a sample note there. And notice I have all these elements that are now coming together for my model. Now the final step is actually to share and revise this model. So I could send this idea to someone I may be collaborating with, and to see if it works out for them, if they like it. They may have some changes or edits, and so if they do, I could simply come in and add additional elements onto here. So if we want to do like a frequently asked questions or something like that, we could certainly add that in. Maybe that is delivered in an HTML document. And then integrate that into the model. So we're kind of working back and forth creating that model. So here I've walked through how to build those out, and just keep in mind that this is a very fluid process, though. So you're not going to go through the steps and just be done. It's once you're going to share it, get feedback, and go back and forth until you've modified the model to a point where you're happy with it. So I'm going to switch back here to the original example, and so notice that in this example I've built in all these elements into it. I've also added time stamps or time expectations for what would happen in the classroom. That's certainly a common way that you could build from and annotate the model, but in general it provides a very concise way of communicating what this lesson is intended to do, and how all the elements work together to achieve that. So when you're working in a flowcharting software, you can share and collaborate with others, certainly, and also you can download in various file formats, such as a PDF, a image file, and all sorts of file formats that you can work with, as well as for sharing. So here in this video I've provided just a brief overview of how I went about creating a learning environment model using the learning environment modeling language in a flowcharting software. So feel free to give this a try it out, and begin working through and modeling different learning environments that may be of interest to you.